In the heart of Washington, D.C., a storm was brewing. It wasn't the kind that brought rain and thunder, but the type that shook the foundations of power. The political landscape was about to change as rumors circulated about explosive revelations in an upcoming congressional hearing. The day began like any other for journalists covering Capitol Hill. Coffee cups in hand, notepads ready, they filed into the large hearing room. The air was thick with anticipation as lawmakers settled into their seats. American flags stood tall behind the elevated platform where committee members would soon be seated. "This hearing will come to order," announced the committee chairperson, a stern-faced politician with decades of experience navigating Washington's treacherous waters. The bang of the gavel echoed through the room, silencing the murmurs of conversation. Cameras flashed as a familiar tech entrepreneur entered. Tall and confident, he strode to his designated seat at the witness table. Known for his innovative companies and outspoken nature on social media, his presence alone guaranteed headlines. But today, according to whispers among staffers, he brought something more than his usual provocative statements. "Thank you for appearing before this committee," the chairperson began. "We understand you have information relevant to our investigation into campaign finance irregularities." The tech entrepreneur leaned toward the microphone. "Yes," he replied simply. His voice was calm, but determined. "What I'm about to share will change how Americans view their political system." Behind the scenes, aides rushed through corridors, passing urgent messages to their bosses. Something unexpected was happening. Phone calls were made to high-ranking officials who weren't present. The hearing was being live-streamed to millions of viewers around the country, all unaware that history was unfolding before their eyes. 2 months ago, the tech entrepreneur continued, "My company's security team discovered unusual patterns in certain financial transactions. After careful investigation, we found evidence suggesting illegal campaign contributions being funneled through offshore accounts." A congressman interrupted. "And you have proof of these allegations?" "More than proof," came the reply as he placed a small flash drive on the table. "I have documents, transaction records, and email correspondence that leaves no room for doubt." The room erupted in chaos. Journalists frantically typed on their phones, breaking the news to the world. Committee members huddled together, whispering urgently. Security personnel moved closer to the witness table, eyes scanning the crowd for any unusual movement. Meanwhile, across town, a former high-ranking government official was being notified of the unfolding situation. Surrounded by lawyers and advisors in a luxurious office, the color drained from their face as they watched the live broadcast. "They can't possibly have," they began, before being hushed by a concerned attorney. "Don't say anything," the lawyer warned. "We need to hear exactly what evidence they claim to have." Back at the hearing, technical staff had connected the flash drive to secure government computers. The chairperson called for a brief recess to review the materials, but the damage was already done. Social media exploded with speculation, and news channels interrupted regular programming for special reports. When the session resumed, the atmosphere had shifted. The casual confidence of certain committee members had vanished, replaced by visible tension. The tech entrepreneur sat calmly, occasionally sipping water, seemingly unbothered by the storm he had unleashed. "These documents," began the chairperson, with a heavy voice, "if authenticated, would represent one of the most significant campaign finance violations in modern political history." Outside the hearing room, crowds had gathered. Ordinary citizens stood shoulder to shoulder with political activists, all watching live feeds on their phones. Police established barricades as the numbers grew, a testament to how quickly news spread in the digital age. As the first day of testimony concluded, nothing would be the same again. The tech entrepreneur's revelations had set in motion events that would dominate headlines for weeks to come. Questions of accountability, transparency, and trust in democratic institutions hung in the air like storm clouds. The morning after the explosive congressional hearing, America woke up to a changed world. News vans lined the streets of Washington, D.C., their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like metal trees. Reporters stood in front of government buildings, speaking rapidly into cameras as they tried to explain the complicated scandal to viewers at home. The tech entrepreneur had become an overnight sensation. His face was on every screen, his name on every lip. Some called him a hero, others a troublemaker. He stayed in a hotel under protection, away from the crowds of journalists hunting for exclusive comments. "I didn't do this for fame," he told his closest advisors over breakfast. They sat in a private dining room, blinds drawn against the curious eyes of the world. People deserve to know the truth about who really controls their government. Meanwhile, in an expensive townhouse across town, the former official at the center of the allegations was in crisis mode. Lawyers and public relations experts filled the living room, laptops open, phones constantly buzzing with updates. "They're calling it the biggest political scandal of the decade," said one advisor, scrolling through news headlines. "Turn that off," snapped the former official, pacing across an expensive Persian rug. "We need solutions, not commentary." A senior attorney cleared his throat. "The evidence appears substantial. The transaction records match exactly with your R&D campaign's financial timeline. We need to consider all options, including the possibility that this data is legitimate." The room fell silent. The weight of those words hung heavy in the air. Back at the Capitol, congressional leaders from both political parties held emergency meetings. The allegations crossed party lines, implicating powerful figures across the political spectrum. In private chambers, heated arguments broke out about how to proceed. "We can't ignore this," insisted a veteran congresswoman, pounding her fist on a polished table. "The public is watching. If we try to sweep it under the rug, we're all finished." "But a full investigation will tear this country apart," countered another legislator. "Think about the damage to people's trust in democracy." "That trust is already damaged," responded the first. "Our only hope of repairing it is complete transparency." Outside, ordinary citizens gathered in increasing numbers. They brought handmade signs, American flags, and passionate opinions. Police officers stood in lines, watching carefully as the crowd grew larger and louder. "I took the day off work to be here," said a middle-aged teacher, holding a sign demanding accountability. "My students are watching this unfold. What message does it send if the powerful never face consequences?" Nearby, a group of college students live-streamed the scene on their phones. "This is history happening right in front of us," one explained to viewers. "Whatever your political beliefs, we all deserve honest elections." By afternoon, the tech entrepreneur was called back to continue his testimony. Security was tighter, the crowd of spectators larger. He walked confidently down the center aisle, ignoring both supporters and critics. "We have reviewed the documents you provided," began the committee chairperson, voice echoing through microphones. "Our technical experts have confirmed their authenticity. What we need to understand now is how your company obtained this information." The entrepreneur leaned forward. "As I explained yesterday, our security systems detected unusual patterns. Foreign entities were using advanced methods to disguise these transactions, but they made mistakes. Small ones, but enough for our algorithms to flag them for human review." A skeptical senator interrupted. "So you want us to believe that your private company accidentally stumbled upon evidence that multiple government agencies missed?" "Not accidentally," replied the entrepreneur calmly. "Our technology is specifically designed to identify patterns that traditional systems overlook, and once we found the first thread, we simply followed it to its source." As he spoke, his team released additional documents online, creating another wave of media frenzy. The evidence showed connections between the questionable finances and decisions that had affected millions of Americans. Citizens around the country watched in restaurants, offices, and living rooms. Workers paused to crowd around shared screens. Families discussed the implications over dinner tables. The national conversation had shifted completely. "I've never seen anything like this," remarked a political analyst on television. "This isn't just about one official or one campaign. This raises fundamental questions about who really holds power in America." As evening fell, candlelight vigils appeared in city parks nationwide. People gathered not in anger but in reflection, contemplating what the revelations meant for their country's future. The former official at the center of the allegations finally released a brief statement. I categorically deny any wrongdoing and look forward to addressing these baseless claims through proper legal channels. But the court of public opinion was already in session. Social media blazed with millions of comments, theories, and demands for answers. Foreign governments issued careful statements, watching closely as America grappled with internal turmoil. Night fell on the second day of revelations, but no one believed the darkness would last. Tomorrow would bring new information, new accusations, and new defenses. The machinery of investigation was only beginning to turn its massive gears. In hotel rooms and homes across Washington, key players in the unfolding drama lay awake, contemplating their next moves in what had become a high-stakes game of political chess, one where the American people were finally seeing how the pieces really moved on the board. Day 3 arrived with the sunrise painting Washington, D.C. in golden light. The calm morning betrayed none of the political earthquake still sending aftershocks through the nation. Coffee shops near Capitol Hill opened early, serving exhausted journalists and government staffers who had barely slept. Another day, another revelation, sighed a barista, handing change to a customer. My phone buzzed all night with news alerts. People across America started their day by checking for updates. The story had consumed the national conversation, pushing aside celebrities, sports, and even international conflicts. Breakfast television shows featured panels of experts trying to explain the complex financial trails to viewers just starting their day. At exactly 9 a.m., the tech entrepreneur held an impromptu press conference on the steps of his hotel. He looked tired but determined, his normally casual attire replaced by a simple dark suit. What I'm about to share today goes beyond what we revealed in Congress, he announced to the forest of microphones before him. Camera shutters clicked frantically as he pulled out a folder. These documents show the money trail extended to influence media coverage, silence critics, and manipulate public opinion. Reporters shouted questions, but he raised his hand for silence. I understand the gravity of these allegations. That's why I've submitted everything to 3 independent fact-checking organizations. Their analyses will be published online by noon today. Meanwhile, in a secure government building across town, intelligence officials met behind closed doors. They sat around a large table, faces grim as they reviewed the growing scandal. How did we miss this? Demanded the senior official. We have million-dollar surveillance systems and a tech company caught what we didn't? A younger analyst cleared her throat nervously. Sir, there were reports flagging unusual patterns last year, but they were deprioritized. Deprioritized by whom? The senior official's voice turned cold. The directive came from the 7th floor, she replied quietly, referring to the building's top leadership level. Silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. By midday, the promised independent analyses appeared online. Government servers crashed as millions tried to access the documents simultaneously. People shared screenshots and summaries, trying to understand the complex web of financial deception. At a community center in a small Midwestern town, retired factory workers gathered around a shared tablet. My grandfather always said to follow the money, noted an elderly man with weathered hands. Looks like that advice still holds true. I don't understand all these technical terms, said another, squinting at the screen. But I sure understand. When someone's been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Back in Washington, the former official at the center of the allegations finally emerged from seclusion. Surrounded by attorneys, the once powerful figure appeared before cameras outside a private law office. These accusations are part of a calculated attack on our democracy, the official declared, voice steady despite visible strain. This so-called evidence has been manipulated to tell a false story. I welcome a full investigation that will clear my name and reveal the true motivations behind this charade. As the statement concluded, a reporter shouted, "What about the overseas accounts linked directly to your family members?" Security quickly ended the press conference, hustling the official into a waiting car. Inside the Capitol, the congressional investigation expanded. New subpoenas were issued hourly. Staff members from various political offices were seen carrying boxes of documents. Rumors spread about potential immunity deals for insiders willing to testify. The walls are closing in, whispered one congressional aide to another as they passed in a marble hallway. People are starting to save themselves. By late afternoon, the tech entrepreneur returned to Congress, this time to speak before a different committee. The room was even more crowded than before, with spectators lining the walls. Yesterday, we discussed how we discovered the financial irregularities, he began. Today, I want to address why we went public rather than handling this through traditional channels. He took a sip of water before continuing. We tried that route first. For 6 weeks, we attempted to share our findings with appropriate authorities. Those attempts were blocked, ignored, or buried. When we realized how many powerful people were implicated, we understood why. A committee member leaned forward. Are you suggesting a coordinated cover-up? I'm not suggesting it, the entrepreneur replied. I'm stating it as fact, and I have the communication records to prove it. Outside, the crowds had grown enormous. Regular citizens stood shoulder to shoulder with activists. They represented all political viewpoints, united only in their demand for truth. An elderly woman held a simple sign reading, "Our country deserves better." Nearby, a young father had brought his children. I want them to see what citizenship means, he explained to a reporter. Sometimes you have to stand up and be counted. As evening approached, an unexpected development shocked the nation. 3 high-ranking officials from different government agencies announced their resignations, effective immediately. Their joint statement cited a crisis of conscience but offered no further explanation. News helicopters captured the image of staff members leaving federal buildings with personal belongings in boxes. The symbolic power of the scene was unmistakable. The mighty were falling. Night fell on the 3rd day of revelations, with Americans everywhere wondering, what would tomorrow bring? How deep did the corruption go? And could their democracy survive the painful process of cleaning its own house? In his hotel room, the tech entrepreneur stood at the window, looking out at the capital city. The monuments were lit against the night sky, physical reminders of the ideals that had built the nation. He knew that what he had started couldn't be stopped now. For better or worse, the truth was finally coming to light. The 4th day of the unfolding scandal dawned gray and rainy in Washington. The weather seemed to match the nation's mood, somber, reflective, waiting for the storm to pass. Water streamed down the windows of government buildings as officials arrived early, many having barely left the night before. News anchors looked exhausted on morning shows, dark circles under their eyes betraying the round-the-clock coverage. We're entering day 4 of what many are calling the most significant political scandal of our lifetime, one reporter said, standing under an umbrella as rain pelted the Capitol dome behind her. Inside a secure conference room at the Justice Department, a team of prosecutors met urgently. Papers covered a long table, laptops open to complex financial spreadsheets. The lead attorney, a veteran of high-profile cases, addressed the room. As of 6 a.m., we've received judicial approval to access additional accounts, she announced. The pattern is consistent with what the tech company discovered, but the scale is much larger than we initially understood. A younger prosecutor raised his hand. Should we be concerned about evidence disappearing? We already are, replied the lead attorney grimly. 3 offshore banks reported unusual withdrawal attempts last night. Fortunately, we froze those assets in time. Across town, the tech entrepreneur prepared for his 4th consecutive day of testimony. His hotel suite had transformed into a makeshift command center, with technical experts and lawyers reviewing documents. Despite the pressure, he maintained a focused calm. The most dangerous revelations are still coming, he told his closest advisor over a hurried breakfast. Today we expose who really benefited from these schemes, and it wasn't just politicians. When he arrived at the congressional hearing room, the crowd outside had swelled despite the rain. People huddled under umbrellas, some having waited overnight to secure a spot in the public gallery. They cheered as his car pulled up, a chorus of support mixed with media shouting questions. Inside, the atmosphere had changed noticeably. Gone was the initial skepticism from committee members. Now they leaned forward attentively, fully aware of the historical significance of these proceedings. Before we begin today's testimony, announced the chairperson, I must address reports that certain members of this very committee have received communications attempting to discredit or threaten our witness. Let me be absolutely clear. Any such attempts will be treated as obstruction of justice and referred for prosecution. Murmurs rippled through the room. The lines between investigators and potentially implicated parties were blurring. The tech entrepreneur took his seat at the witness table. Thank you, Chairperson. Today I intend to demonstrate how these illegal funding operations directly influenced policy decisions that affected millions of Americans. He opened a laptop, and screens around the room displayed a complex diagram. What you're seeing is a web of relationships between campaign contributions, policy changes, and private sector profits. The pattern is undeniable once you see the complete picture. For the next 3 hours, he methodically walked through examples. Environmental regulations mysteriously weakened after specific donations, healthcare policies shifted to benefit certain companies, government contracts awarded under suspicious circumstances. This isn't about left or right, he emphasized. Both major parties are implicated. This is about a system that has been corrupted from within. Meanwhile, in living rooms and workplaces across America, citizens watched with growing outrage. A high school government teacher in Ohio paused the live stream to address her stunned students. This is why civic education matters, she told them. Democracy only works when we pay attention and hold power accountable. In a truck stop in Texas, drivers gathered around a television, coffee cups in hand. Never thought I'd see the day, remarked an older driver. Those folks in Washington finally getting caught with their hands in the cookie jar. As the hearing continued, social media erupted with a new hashtag as citizens pledged to remember these revelations at the next election. The message was simple: no more business as usual. By mid-afternoon, the former official at the center of the allegations faced mounting pressure. Close allies had begun distancing themselves. Longtime friends weren't returning calls. Even family members were reportedly urging a full confession. The evidence is overwhelming, admitted a senior advisor during a tense private meeting. We need to consider a plea arrangement before options disappear. The former official stared out the window, watching raindrops trace paths down the glass. How did this happen? We were so careful. Technology caught up to our methods, replied the advisor simply, and one person decided to put truth above politics. Back at the hearing, the tech entrepreneur introduced his most damning evidence, yet recorded conversations between officials discussing how to hide the financial trail. These recordings were provided by a whistleblower within one of the implicated organizations, he explained. They came to us after attempting to report these concerns through proper channels and being silenced. The room fell completely silent as the first recording played. Though the voices were disguised for the whistleblower's protection, the content was crystal clear: explicit discussions about hiding foreign money and buying influence. When the recordings ended, several committee members appeared visibly shaken. One removed her glasses, wiping her eyes. Another sat motionless, staring at his notes. After a long pause, the chairperson spoke. In light of what we've just heard, this committee will recess until tomorrow morning. I believe we all need time to process this information. As evening fell, impromptu gatherings formed in cities nationwide. In Atlanta, thousands stood with candles in a silent vigil for democracy. In Chicago, professors held emergency public lectures explaining the constitutional implications. In small towns and big cities alike, Americans came together, crossing political divides to express shared concern for their nation's future. Night settled over a changed America. In homes across the country, families discussed what they'd witnessed. Parents tried to explain complex concepts of governance to curious children. Grandparents recalled other national crises overcome in their lifetimes. And in Washington, as lights burned late in government offices, a sense of inevitable reckoning hung in the air. The fourth day had brought the crisis to its turning point. Whatever happened next would determine whether this moment would destroy public trust or begin the painful process of restoring it. Dawn broke clear and bright on the fifth day, the morning sun illuminating the Washington Monument as if nature itself wanted to remind everyone what was at stake. After days of tension and revelations, this would be the day everything came to a head. The capital city awoke early. Street vendors set up coffee stands near Capitol Hill, serving the growing crowds that had become a fixture outside government buildings. People from every walk of life had traveled from across the country, drawn by a shared sense that history was unfolding before their eyes. "Been here all week," said a retired school teacher from Oregon, clutching a thermos. "Haven't missed a day. My grandkids need to know someone was watching when it mattered." Inside a downtown hotel, the tech entrepreneur sat quietly with his team. The toll of the past 4 days showed clearly on his face, the stubble on his chin, the dark circles under his eyes. Yet there was something else there too, resolve. "Ready for the final push?" asked his chief security officer, sliding a tablet across the table with the day's prepared materials. The entrepreneur nodded. "Truth all the way to the end, no matter where it leads." Across town, the former official at the center of the scandal faced the inevitable. After a night of intense discussions with lawyers, family members, and remaining loyal staff, morning brought clarity, if not peace. "It's time," said the most senior attorney, placing a typed statement on the desk. "The evidence is insurmountable. A full admission now is the only path forward that preserves any dignity." The once powerful figure picked up the paper with trembling hands. "Will they remember anything else I've done? 30 years of service? Does it all disappear because of this?" "History will judge the full measure," the attorney answered gently. "But first we must face today." By 9 o'clock, the hearing room was packed beyond capacity. Additional viewing rooms had been set up throughout the Capitol complex. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Today's session would feature not just the tech entrepreneur, but also several whistleblowers who had come forward after seeing his testimony. The committee chairperson called the session to order with unusual solemnity. "Before we begin today's proceedings, I have been asked to read the following statement." A hush fell over the room as the chairperson unfolded a paper that had been delivered moments before. As of 8:45 this morning, formal charges have been filed against 14 current and former government officials in connection with this investigation. Additionally, the individual at the center of these allegations has submitted a written confession to the Department of Justice and will be surrendering to federal authorities at noon today. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Journalists frantically typed on phones and laptops, breaking the news to the world. The committee called a 15-minute recess to allow everyone to absorb this stunning development. When proceedings resumed, the tech entrepreneur took his place at the witness table one final time. The usual tension had been replaced by something else, a sense of closure beginning to form. "In light of this morning's developments," began the entrepreneur, "I'd like to shift my planned testimony. Instead of focusing on further allegations, I believe it would be more productive to discuss how we prevent this from happening again." For the next 2 hours, he outlined practical reforms, campaign finance changes, transparency measures, technology solutions that could help monitor suspicious financial activities. The conversation had pivoted from scandal to solutions. "The system didn't fail because it was poorly designed," he explained. "It failed because we stopped watching it closely enough. Democracy requires maintenance." Meanwhile, across the city, a remarkable scene unfolded. The former official, once among the most powerful people in Washington, emerged from a private residence surrounded by attorneys. News helicopters captured the moment as a black SUV with government plates waited at the curb. There was no attempt to hide, no dramatic arrest. Instead, the public witnessed something rare in politics: accountability. Head held high despite the circumstances, the official walked steadily to the vehicle for the short drive to the federal building. By early afternoon, attention shifted to the White House, where the president addressed the nation from the Oval Office. The speech was brief, but powerful. "Today, our country has witnessed both great disappointment and great courage," the president said, looking directly into the camera. "We have seen how power can corrupt, but also how truth can prevail when brave individuals refused to look away from wrongdoing. Across America, people gathered around screens in living rooms, bars, airports, and workplaces. This was a collective national moment that transcended political divisions. My administration will cooperate fully with all investigations, the president continued. No one is above the law, including anyone in this White House. The American people deserve nothing less than complete transparency. As evening approached, the tech entrepreneur finally left Capitol Hill for the last time. The crowds had grown even larger, forming a path from the steps to his waiting car. People reached out as he passed, offering handshakes, words of gratitude, and even flowers. A reporter managed one final question. "Do you consider yourself a hero?" The entrepreneur paused. "No, I'm just someone who stumbled upon the truth and decided not to look away." The heroes are the American people who are demanding better from their government today. As night fell on the fifth day, spontaneous gatherings formed in public spaces nationwide. In Washington, thousands stood peacefully with candles around. The Lincoln Memorial. In New York, the crowds filled Times Square. Similar scenes played out in cities and towns across the country. These weren't partisan rallies, but something more profound. Citizens coming together to reclaim faith in their institutions. Parents brought children to witness what would surely be remembered as a pivotal moment in history. An elderly man in Chicago held a simple sign that captured the national mood. "The truth still matters." Local news interviewed a young woman in Atlanta who expressed what many felt. "This week has been painful for our country, but necessary. It's like lancing a wound. It hurts, but it's the only way to heal." As midnight approached, the tech entrepreneur stood alone on the balcony of his hotel room, looking out at the capital city. The monuments glowed softly in the distance, enduring symbols of ideals that had been tested but not broken. His phone buzzed with a message from a colleague. "What now?" He typed a simple reply. Now the real work begins. The scandal that had consumed the nation for 5 dramatic days was ending, but its impact was just beginning. Laws would change. New safeguards would be implemented. Most importantly, millions of citizens had awakened to their crucial role in protecting democracy, not just through voting, but through vigilance. Sometimes systems need to break before they can be truly fixed, and sometimes it takes just one person willing to speak the truth to change everything.